All right, so this is OT security, and we're down to this chapter here. We're going to talk about 6 and 7, which is very much standard security best practices, the kind of stuff Musk left OpenAI before they changed their structure. Yeah, well, that would fit his explanation, that he left them over what was essentially a religious argument. That was his story. I mean, it's very hard to ever find the truth, but his story is he left because they claimed they were going to just kill off humans and destroy the world. Anyway, all right, so let's take a look at these chapters, and you'll see this is very common security stuff that you would find in like a security CISSP class. But that's what you need. All right. Good. Akron had a different story about Musk. It'd be interesting to see. All right. Anyway, so all right, we're going to talk about best practices, and most of this is general security stuff applicable that you find in Security Plus or CISSP. The Purdue model is, of course, specific to OT. So you should have firewalls, of course, to filter your packets, and most modern firewalls are stateful, and most are even deep packet inspection, where they have more than just the history of the packets, which you see here, but they actually look at all the layers, all the data in the packet to decide if it's safe. And intrusion detection systems not only have static rules to block things like a firewall. Well, I guess they're just sort of next generation firewalls. Firewalls typically have simple rules like block certain ports and protocols. IDSs have a whole list of malicious things like antivirus, very much to block certain things, or raise alerts if it's found, or block it. All of these are very similar devices that monitor your network traffic and stop known attacks. Security monitoring is, of course, the next step. And now we all know that these prevention measures like firewalls are not perfect. Some bad stuff will get through. So you have network security monitoring to notice when bad things happen on your network that have gotten through your defenses. You're looking for unsuspicious things, and there are various ways to do it. You can look at logs or network or behavior of the machines. And this is done in a security operations center, a room with monitors and staff specifically monitoring your network, looking for trouble, typically using an SIEM system, which these days the most popular ones are QRadar and Splunk, the product that monitors your network traffic and makes it easy to detect strange things on it. And then this is incorporating threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is information about the attackers that comes from the outside, basically from news sources, typically turned into automated machine-readable feeds. So your security information and event monitoring system, of which Splunk is the leader, or the second, I'm not sure, but it's 1 or 2 now. This takes all the data you've got from all your devices, your firewalls, servers, your detection systems, and so on. It sends it all through the network to collect in a central database, and then you can send alerts, and you can use it to search through that data and find out what's happening. So like I say, Splunk is the leading SIM, and I've added it to the project. Let's read project demonstration later. And here you can search for events on your network and analyze what's happened. Now, the Purdue model is like the OSA model for operational technology security. So you have down here at the bottom level, you've got the processes like controlling industrial machines. Then you like the sensors and actuators that are actually doing things to the machine. And then you have the ICS systems, which are the industrial control systems that directly control those devices. And above them, you have SCADA systems, which is supervisory control over a larger group of them. So you have sort of 2 layers of control, one directly controlling the individual devices and one looking over them sort of like a supervisor. And above that, you've got level 3 operations management with things like production and scheduling, and above that, business planning and logistics. So it's these models are a little more like business layers than technology layers, but the two do tend to come together. So the different levels have different risk profiles, and this is the fundamental issue that is the central issue of this class. If you are used to working up at, say, the IT level, where you think about things like email and normal IT processes like that, you have security that is based on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But down here, there's a different kind of security that is important because this was all developed before you had the internet, before you cared, the kind of security that matters when you're in one factory where you're controlling the devices there. And so at the lower levels, they require real-time communication and high availability, and that's what they call security, meaning the equipment will be physically safe and it will be reliable and stay up, which is what they need for security down there. But at the high levels, you have things like integrity and confidentiality, and that is the fundamental cultural problem. The normal security experts for IT don't understand or appreciate the difficulty of people at lower levels. And this, by the way, is a fundamental psychological problem in all of security. One thing IT security people typically don't understand is business risk at the higher levels in management. So they don't communicate effectively at management because they don't understand. Management is thinking about things like, is our competitor going to make a other product that will put us out of business? Do we need to outsource something? How do we manage our costs? And the IT people are thinking about encryption and closing vulnerabilities with patches and stuff. And they don't understand, just like there's a layer above them that thinks of different important concepts that they often don't understand or appreciate, there's a layer below them that thinks about important concepts that the IT people often don't understand or appreciate. So you need to gain more understanding and less frustration and hostility towards the layers of the company that do important things that you don't, and you need to treat them with more respect and help them succeed without just foolishly ignoring what they're doing and thinking it's not important because it's different than where you normally think. All right. Then, of course, you got your third-party vendors, and this is a huge problem these days. Nobody really does everything all by themselves. You have a lot of vendors. You outsource things. You rely on people. And so you got secure remote access for these people coming in from the outside to access your systems and maintain things. You've got, this is very common. Many companies don't have specialized staff to handle things like security, so they have external providers doing that. And remember, Target, I think, got hacked through the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning vendors that connected remotely into their systems to maintain that, and it turned out they were not secure, and that turned into an entry point for the bad guys. So this is the problem. The third-party vendors may be less secure, they may have malicious insiders, and so on, so you have to consider your vendors. The vendors are being given privileges in your network, and you have to trust them. So you have to have a good relationship with them. Anyway, see a good discussion about Elon there. Good. Anyway, so, all right. So you have to consider the policies of your vendors. You have to give them strong authentication so you really know it's them and not imposters, like multi-factor, encrypt communications, and audit and monitor the communications to see if people are coming in and doing bad things through your approved third-party entry points. And of course, you have to consider the practices of your vendor to decide if you want to trust them with your network. All right, and then there's patch management. This is a big contentious issue in OT. In IT security, they say put on your patches right away. It's really important. But in fact, most people are very far behind. At least a few years ago, they said the average company was 270 days behind in their patches because it was so difficult for the IT people to test things thoroughly and make sure the patches wouldn't break important things, which they often do. And in the world of OT, it is even more important not to let the patches break things. So it's a problem. So you have to identify patches, determine your relevance, test them to see if they're not going to break things, and then apply them and monitor to see if they've made a change. And in OT environments, they're running on legacy hardware and software, and they're not intended to ever have patches. They're just intended to keep going forever the same way, usually. And so if there are patches at all, they might be really important, but you have to be very careful to test them because you don't want to create downtime or create dangerous conditions with your patches. And the IT idea that you just click update and say OK is entirely inappropriate at the OT level. So you got to first inventory your hardware and software so you know what you have with versions and such. Then decide which patches are worth putting on. Is this really a risk that matters to us? how critical is the system, how likely is it that we're going to have this attack. Then you have to test it, making sure it doesn't destabilize your systems or cause problems, which they very often do. Then you have a scheduled maintenance window to put it on, and you maintain records, and you can try to automate all this. But this is actually extremely difficult and often very poorly done, and that's why there are so many breaches where they say, this thing was patched months ago, and you guys got hacked. What idiots you are. I say, well, they might be idiots, but there might be very important reasons why they were not able to put those patches on quickly, too. It could be either way. And so you have to have a rollback plan. If your patch causes trouble, how are you going to roll back to the previous condition? There are occasionally Microsoft patches. I think I remember one for Exchange where they warned you, when you put this patch on, there is no way to remove it. So in a case like that, you would have to do something like make a system image using Norton Ghost or something first, so there is some way back. Because especially when they're changing something so critical that they can't roll it back, that probably means it's more likely to break things. So you really have to consider how to roll back. And your staff should be aware of what's going on here. So another general principle is least privilege and access control. You need to identify people so you know who they are. Then you have to give them only the privileges they need to do their job so that they cannot do excess harm. And so if they get infected, for example, by ransomware or something, the ransomware won't be able to spread too far because people only have access to the systems they need to have access to. That's the idea. So first you have to make sure you really know who people are with authentication, like multi-factor authentication. Then you have assign them permissions, and typically you do it by job role. You could do it by individual. Sam can do this, Sally can do that, Joe can do that. But of course, as your staff changes, that's hard to maintain. It's much better to sort your people into categories: administrator, help desk, sales, or whatever, and then give them permissions based on their role. You could also consider other factors, like time of day. If you have staff that works routine hours, like your help desk or something, they only come in from 9 to 5 and then they're gone, then it would make sense to limit their ability to log on to only those times, so that if their credentials are stolen and a criminal tries sneaking in after hours, those credentials won't work. And so you have to consider creating, maintaining, and deactivating your user accounts. You have to monitor your privileged accounts, see what they've been doing, because they're dangerous. Your administrators might be doing unauthorized things, creating new administrator accounts, or of course they might have stolen credentials, where a bad guy's using a high privileged account to do bad things. And you have to revoke unnecessary or outdated privileges. This is a very common flaw, that people leave the company and their credentials are not removed quickly, so the person who has left, who may be angry and disloyal, comes back in after they've been fired and messes with the network. There have been a lot of cases like that. So let's try a Kahoot. This is Chapter 6. And I've got them here. OT Chapter 6. Well, we'll carry on even if there's only 2 competitors. Such is life. All right. Where's the rollback plan come in? All right, that's contingency planning. Good. All right, which access control method is based on your position in the company? Role-based access control, the most common, typically implemented in Windows domains. All right, and what does Splunk do? It's a SIM. Good. I say this is pretty basic stuff. All right. All right. So, let's go on to Chapter 7. I think we did Chapter 6, right? Yeah, good. All right. Oh, I'll stop and make a separate recording, I guess.